Hello everybody, my name is Nick, and welcome to this video. If you've found this video, then you probably found it by scanning the QR code on the posters that I've left around the library. This video is about the history of the Fletcher Free Library. I'm going to be covering all of the Fletcher Free Library's history from its early days all the way up to the present day. So now without further ado, let's get started on the history of the Fletcher Free Library. Let's get started. To begin this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory about the history of Burlington, Vermont as a whole, as it plays a key role in the development of the Fletcher Free Library. Starting off with the Burlington Ravine. The Burlington Ravine was part of the original landscape that Burlington, Vermont was founded on. And the Burlington Ravine was all the way there from the day Burlington, Vermont was founded, all the way to 1870. And why was it all the way there up into the 1870s? Well, it's because the Burlington Ravine was filled. However, the filling of the Burlington Ravine would become a bit of an issue later in the timeline of the Fletcher Free Library, but I will get to that later. So now, let's get started on the beginnings of the Fletcher Free Library. On July 14th, 1873, Mrs. Mary L. Fletcher and her daughter, Miss Mary M. Fletcher, made a $20,000 donation to the city of Burlington to have a dedicated library be built in the city. And well, the Fletcher Free Library was born. The Fletcher Free Library was not located in its current building, however. It was actually located in the old City Hall building, and from the years 1873 to 1900, the Fletcher Free Library was housed in the old City Hall building and was doing very well. Although, by the years 1900 to 1902, the Fletcher Free Library began to outgrow the old City Hall building, and plans to build a dedicated Fletcher Free Library building were in the works. And funding for this dedicated Fletcher Free Library building came from none other than Andrew Carnegie. He made a $50,000 donation to help fund this new project of a dedicated Fletcher Free Library building. And that's about $1.6 million adjusted for modern day inflation. And the Carnegie building was designed by Walter R.B. Wilcox, a local architect in the city of Burlington, Vermont. And Walter designed this building all the way from the years 1900 to 1902, when construction of the Carnegie building began. Construction finished of the Carnegie building in August of 1904, and the Fletcher Free Library opened to the public. And well, that's it for the early history of the Fletcher Free Library, but let's fast forward to the 1970s, since there are some problems that arise during that time period. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, the land that the Fletcher Free Library was built on began to shift, and this was due to one factor: the filling of the Burlington Ravine. You see, prior to the Burlington Ravine getting filled, it was home to a landfill, and the trash from that landfill was never removed, and the Burlington Ravine was just filled up. And well, this caused problems later because the trash began to decompose, which caused serious structural cracking in the foundation of the Carnegie building, which caused serious problems to the Fletcher Free Library. And after the city of Burlington conducted an examination of the foundation of the Carnegie building, they deemed the building in serious need of structural work in order for it to remain operational. And well, the Fletcher Free Library did not really have the budget to do these renovations, and the city of Burlington proposed that the Carnegie building be demolished, the land be cleared, and a dedicated state-of-the-art Fletcher Free Library building be built. However, residents of the Burlington area were not quite fond of this, particularly because they saw the Carnegie building as a historical landmark. And while a citizens committee of Burlington pushed to get the Carnegie building listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that's exactly what happened. On August 18, 1973, the Fletcher Free Library Carnegie building was officially added to the National Register of Historic Places, giving it a new protection status. With this new protection status, the Fletcher Free Library was finally eligible to receive grant funding to help fund the structural repairs, as well as a new addition that was proposed by the owners of the Fletcher Free Library. A grant was awarded to the Fletcher Free Library to help fund this new addition, as well as the structural renovations to the Carnegie building. And all throughout 1977 to 1980, the Carnegie building received its much-needed structural renovations, making it a lot more structurally sound. And from the years 1980 to 1981, the new addition was built alongside the Carnegie building, with the two buildings being connected. The exterior of the 80s edition was built out of bricks, concrete, and glass, and the interior received a design that was meant to be for a library. And what I mean by this is that the interior was specifically all wall-to-wall carpeting, and the walls were all bricks. and this design choice was chosen to help with sound insulation, since sound insulation is pretty key for a library. And since this 80s edition, the Fletcher Free Library hasn't changed much at all recently. But now let's get to the present day. The Fletcher Free Library, structural-wise, is doing excellent. The land hasn't shifted any more than it has from the 1970s, and overall the structural integrity of both buildings are doing excellent. Although the 80s edition does look rather dated given the building is over 40 years old. However, in 2019, the Otis LL Architecture Group was hired by the city of Burlington to develop a visionary redesign of the Fletcher Free Library. This proposed redesign would rework the entire interior of the 80s edition as well as the Carnegie building to help give it a more modern feel as well as to better utilize the space. And this proposed renovation would renovate the Carnegie building, however, the designs did include that they would try to preserve as much of the Carnegie building as possible as to preserve its historical presence. This proposed renovation would upgrade the current curtain glass wall on the front of the 80s edition with an all-modern glass paneling wall to replace it, as the old curtain glass wall was prone to leaking. New features would be added to the library with this proposed redesign, including a drive-by book drop-off, a new entry walkway design, as well as an exterior terrace with tables and chairs for people to sit outside on. And so far, no actions have come to make this plan a reality, given the COVID-19 pandemic has slowed down quite a bit of big projects throughout the world. And well, that is what the current state of the Fletcher Free Library is today. And overall, that is the history of the Fletcher Free Library. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and leave a like and tell me what your personal story or connection is to the Fletcher Free Library down in the comments below. I do read the comments and I will reply to your comment. And well, for those of you who want to, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye!